Hi. Well, I'll tell you, I think do I need to turn that on now?
Did you hit it?
Okay, it's on. So I think the hardest job is preparing for a reading. It's not the actual writing. The writing's like a dream compared to this. So, Roberta, thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, next time I'll get the title right.
Well, that's okay. I like Fears of Influence, too. That was pretty good. So thank you all for coming here to help me launch my new novel. And I really want to thank Roberta and Broadway Books, who not only have supported me as a writer, but they've encouraged and hosted hundreds and hundreds of readers and authors over the years. So help me thank them. Okay, so you did such a great intro that I don't really even have to tell you what the book's about, because you kind of get it. And I'm going to read 2 chapters tonight, and then there's going to be a little something extra, and then I'll sign books. So what we need to know is the first chapter I'm going to read is from Helen's perspective, and Sammy is her daughter, and Avery is Sammy's lover. And the Lucky Girl Band is playing at a garage sale, and you'll see a bit of that in the second chapter. And they're playing some tunes, and tonight you're going to get to hear one of their songs. Helen. Soon it will snow. The clouds gather in slow pairs and triplets, joining their silk edges. In the chair by the window, Helen sits, legs out in front on the ottoman. There is one slight gap with blue between the clouds. Blue, the color Helen will miss the most. Over the past year, she has compiled a list. The list is why Sammy doesn't want her to talk with Avery, thinks it upsets her when all along it is Sammy being so disconcerted. A word both Helen and Avery agree is perfectly sounded to its meaning, disconcerted. The list of what she will miss is kept in her address book. Sammy won't find it till after. It is broken down into 2 categories. 1. What she will miss about the world. Blue, in the edges of rivers, the throats of bluebells, the sky after summer electrical storms, flowers, every type. Walking at dusk, especially in fall. Clam chowder at that place she can never remember the name of down in Egg Harbor. Her cat Nellie, who has been dead 12 years. Books, the library, wind chimes, Avery, and her poetry. 2. What she will miss about Sammy. It covers a full page. There is nothing she won't miss. Helen looks around her bedroom, light sea green walls, ceiling in sweet cream, such calm colors to float in as on a raft. She picked the paint colors after the last diagnosis. Her doctor sat behind his massive desk like a rampart where orders are given for the war during the battle of cancer, and told her it was back. Her response was, "But there's no breast left to have breast cancer in." He tilted forward in his chair and said, "Doesn't matter." Helen said, "But it was gone, completely gone for 10 years. How does it come back?" What was important, he says, was that they caught it early, like a murderer before he goes out and kills someone else, his exact words, and that they would fight this together. But it wasn't together. Before the first courses of radiation and chemo began, Sammy and Avery painted Helen's room. It took them 4 days, Sammy in white painter's pants, Avery in striped overalls. The 2 of them singing to the radio or asking Helen to join in a round robin of row, row, row your boat. This was the optimistic phase, when a positive attitude seemed all Helen would need to defeat round 2 of the cancer. Life is but a dream. The 3 of them would eat together, Avery bringing over salads, broccoli, green beans, and tomatoes from her garden, cooking what she called whole foods, fresh haddock, brown rice, buckwheat, tofu. To fatten Helen up, Avery would say, and Helen would add, before the slaughter, and they would both laugh at the absurdity of the comment. The kitchen table was the place Helen felt the strongest, the most sure that the cancer would be sent packing back into remission, for how could she not be part of this life, watching her daughter unfold day by day? Unbearable to think otherwise, and at that point she didn't. The 3 of them would play Monopoly, donning names like Mr. Steal You Blind, Dr. Nimble Thimble, and Boots Mulligatawny. Each of them prayed to own all the railroads. Sammy always bought Park Place. Helen kept to the cheap parcels. Avery was the wild card and kept changing her strategy and usually won. How could Helen not be a part of the banter, the light-heartedness, the continuation of life as a joyous round robin? During the 4 days of painting and the 3 more to allow the room to air out, Helen slept in Sammy's room while Sammy stayed at Avery's. Sammy's bedroom still had the broad red bookcase from her childhood, filled with novels and poetry and textbooks. Her daughter's love of reading matched by her own, and she thought, encouraged by Helen's 33-year stint as librarian, carrying mountains of books to and from the library. There was a stack on Sammy's nightstand. Margaret Atwood, Janet Kaufman, Virginia Woolf, and Anne Sexton. Helen paged through, read them all. She thought how those books were an unseen strata inside Sammy, like an atmospheric condition. Entering into the same words Sammy had read was a kind of communication, a shared world. It added a glaze. But how could she differentiate the impact? How could the reading of a book make itself visible on Sammy, on her? And yet, she was sure it did. Words like wallpaper, no, like wallpaper paste. The paint dried, the room aired out with the windows open to the late spring gusts. Sammy and Avery put away their painter's clothes. Helen moved back into her bedroom where the colors reminded her of a placid sea. It was not immediate how she knew she would not stay afloat. Like wallpaper paste losing its grip and the wallpaper unmooring, that was the feeling. It began after she returned to her bedroom. Not that she could point to an exact when. It was more a presence of something like wallpaper under wallpaper that begins to reveal itself slowly, so that if Sammy asked, "You doing okay, Mom?" she would answer, "Yes, honey," because at first the presence was obscure, a fog she could believe was a medication side effect, ephemera, unspecified sensation, inklings. That was how her death was arriving. The 3 of them still had dinner together, interspersed Monopoly with Scrabble or Mealborn. Some nights Avery read them poems. Dusk in the window panes, Sammy curled into the couch, Avery on the edge of the cushion, pointing every once in a while at a word she was reading. Helen in the wing-back chair believed Avery knew what Helen was keeping secret from Sammy. It was May. It was the night Avery had read one of her poems. It started, "Beneath the charms, life is a bangle. Attendance has been perfect, odd link to link. Except for the lapses, the clasps undoing, then done again, and then the jangle, added charms, for or against." Avery had looked up at Helen as she read. Maybe she was nervous as they were her words, her poem, but no. She was reading to Helen. If Sammy noticed, she said nothing. They clapped when Avery was done, and Sammy said, "Another, another." Sammy, Avery. Helen never imagined such a relationship for her daughter, but look at them. Look, it was May. They were a poem. The clouds pull apart and leave a brilliant pond of blue, but it is a brief clearing. The clouds slink back and fill in the sky. Squirrels race across the electric wires onto the branches of trees. She will miss Sammy ringing the bell on her bicycle when she turns into the driveway, like she does now, riding past the window where Helen sits, enjoying everything she will miss. So now we're going to skip ahead in the book to, we're in the midst of the garage sale. The Lucky Girl band is tuning up, and we're going to meet Charlotta, who is Avery's pregnant Vietnamese pot-bellied pig, who has taken up refuge in the back of the garage after an encounter with a puppy. We also meet teenagers Darla and Ruth, who are visiting Charlotta. Charlotta settles into her berth of blankets behind the boxes. No need to keep vigil. The puppy is gone. No more wet dog mildew odor. The piglets have also wound down, and her belly is quiet without anxious kicking. The weight of the piglets is centered, the swarm of them interlocking into a density like a boulder in a river. There is the saw of a fiddle hawing back and forth across a short run of notes. The clarinet swims in low before quickening into the higher register. Charlotta adjusts the flaps of her ears to dampen the fiddling about of the instruments. The guitar and mandolin pluck the same strings over and over, each one trying to shift the sourness of the note. She drifts, her eyes soft, staring out the door's window. The red light bulb is on outside and casts a rosy blush. The snow falls through the light like powdered sugar. The scent of wood smoke swirls with the wind that enters each time the front door is open. Wind and wood smoke, snow-tinged, brisk and merry as the river outside. Curly patterns, lovely smells. Her eyes close as if something, the snow, the wind, has closed them for her, and the pinky light from the light bulb has taken up residence inside her. What sweetness to roll in crackly red maple leaves and scout the woods for odorous morsels. There is more mud and fungi in the loot of decay, and Charlotta is drooling when the two girls find her napping. Charlotta senses a rift in her sleep, something in need of her attention. At first it comes to her as rustling, then a draft of musk, like she has smelled on Sammy's wrist, but it is not Sammy. She opens her eyes. Two girls lean over the boxes, chewing, and watch her. The musk smell is mixed with mint. Darla says, "I'd like to be that content." "Oh, Darla, don't be silly," Ruth says. "Contentment is something humans made up to ensure discontent." "Well, still," Darla says. The thing they are chewing is sucked in and out of their mouths like clouds, and Charlotta opens her own mouth, not in imitation, but in want. It is dark out, or the red bulb would not be on. Dark means dinner. Or maybe it did last week, and now it means she has to wait until not only dark arrives, but also stays for a measurement she cannot gauge. The smell of the musk and the mint awakens her, and if she is not careful, it will arouse the piglets to begin their acrobatics. Charlotta closes her mouth. This seems to be the invitation the girls were waiting for. They nudge each other and kneel down on the edge of the blankets. "I could imagine being a veterinarian," Ruth says. "The bigger the animal, the better, like working with circuses, tigers, and elephants." "Ruth, not so loud. We don't want to disturb Charlotta." But Charlotta isn't bothered. She likes Darla and her coat with the fringe on the sleeves and her soft face with the dimple. She grunts. Wonder what that means, Ruth says. That you'd make a terrible vet. You're probably right, Ruth says, but it certainly isn't outside my capabilities. Certainly not, Darla says. She lifts her hand, palm open, and holds it close to Charlotta's snout. Charlotta watches Ruth and decides she's prickly but harmless. They're different than dogs, Darla says. They're cleaner for one, and Avery told my dad, much smarter. But having pigs as pets, Ruth says, is a little eccentric. Not that that's bad. I wouldn't mind, and probably am already seen that way. Yeah, probably, Darla says, and scratches Charlotta behind her ear in a slow back and forth motion. The instruments still haven't landed together on the same note. The light from the bulb bounces in Darla's hair almost like sparks. Ruth, with her black hair, seems to absorb the light, her face glowing frosty, but her eyes are the color of mud, and Charlotta wallows there. She's staring at me, Ruth says, like Mr. Johnston does in algebra every time I answer one of his difficult equations, like he's startled I'm even there or wishes I wasn't. I think Charlotta is happy, Darla says. Charlotta is bumped from inside, one piglet waking and stretching its back leg. The stimulation from Darla's scratching has made its way to her belly. It is not a frantic wake-up surge, but more like a pleasurable wave. One bump becomes another. Charlotta shakes her head, her lips scroll backwards. I don't think she's happy, Ruth says. Something happened, Darla says. Go get Avery, Ruth says. She rocks back on her heels as if she's going to run away. It's okay. I don't think anything's wrong. But it could be. It definitely could be. Now I'm sure you would make the world's worst vet. Fine, I'll go. She gets up and knocks one of the empty cardboard boxes over as she leaves. The pink light floods down and the snowflakes have gotten larger. Charlotta swings her bulk up from the blankets and stands in front of Darla. Her breath emits a tiny whistle. She inches closer. Darla begins scratching behind the other ear. The instruments pause, and Charlotta grunts, a note the instruments join to begin their first song.